Marin LAFCO teleconference process. Audio. All microphones are muted. The EO will unmute commissioners once identified. Commissioners can then mute and unmute their own microphones during the meeting. The EO will unmute other microphones as needed during public comment, then remute once their comment time has ended. Recording. This meeting is being recorded. All comments made during the meeting are public record. Public comment. Members of the public can make comment when called upon by either submitting comments by email to staff@marinlafco.org or by using the raise hand function during the public comment on the item which they wish to speak. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes with staff reading, not lasting more than 3 minutes. Any email comments received prior to the close of public comment on that item. Chat box is working, but should only be used if you have technical issues. All chat box comments will be saved based on LAFCO retention policies and kept as part of the public record. Did we have any other commissioners join while I was doing that? Doesn't look like it. Okay. Would you like me to call roll, Madam Chair?
Yes, please.
All right. Sashi McAtee.
Here.
Craig Murray.
Here.
Damon Conley. Absent. Supervisor Judy Arnold.
Here.
Barbara Kohler.
Here.
Lou Calles.
Here.
Larry Loader.
Here.
Alternate members, Dennis Rodoni. Absent. Todd Moody.
Here.
Chris Skelton.
Present.
James Campbell.
Present.
We'll go back to one of our absent members, Supervisor Dennis Conley.
Damon Conley.
Sorry, Damon Conley. My apologies. Here. Gotcha. All right. Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We'll move to agenda review. Does anyone want to remove or rearrange any items, or do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Madam Chair, we do have a member of the public who is present, who is here for item number 5, the 200 Pacheco Avenue application. There are no other members of the public currently on the call. Okay. Did you want to move item 5 up, or did you want? Yeah, I would suggest moving item 5 up so the member of the public can be here and then leave if he doesn't wish to stay for the other items.
Okay. Does anyone want to make that motion?
I'll move that.
I'll second.
Please call the roll, Jason.
Supervisor McAtee. Or
Aye.
Sashi McAtee.
Aye.
It's been a long day. Craig Murray.
Aye.
Damon Conley.
Aye.
Judy Arnold.
Aye.
Barbara Kohler.
Aye.
Lou Calles.
Aye.
Larry Loader.
Aye.
All right. Motion's been approved.
Thank you very much. We'll now move into public open time. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons desiring to address the commission on any matter not on the current agenda. All statements that require a response will be referred to staff for reply in writing or will be placed on the commission's agenda for consideration at a later meeting. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Jason, are there any public open time comments?
I see no hands raised, and I had no no emails prior to the meeting.
Okay, seeing none, then we will close public open time and move to the consent calendar. All consent calendar items are considered ministerial or non-substantive and subject to a single motion approval. The chair will consider requests from the commission to pull an item for discussion. Would any member of the commission or a member of the public like to pull any of the items on the consent calendar? Seeing none, would anyone like to make a motion on the consent calendar?
I'll move consent.
Second.
Please take the roll, Jason.
Sashi McAtee.
Aye.
Craig Murray.
Aye.
Damon Conley.
Aye.
Judy Arnold.
Aye.
Barbara Kohler.
Just a question, did we need to ask if there was any members of the public who wanted to comment?
There were no hands raised and no emails received.
Okay, aye.
Lou Calles.
Aye.
Larry Loader.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. So then we're going to go on to item number 5 of the public hearing items. Approval of Resolution 2023, Annexation of 200 Protaco Avenue to Nevado Sanitary District and approval of Seqa exemption. Jason, will you give the staff report, please?
Sure. This item, we received an application from Ian Murdoch, and I apologize if I mispronounced your last name there. He is on this, he is part of this group and on the Zoom, so he will be able to answer questions when the time comes if you have them for him. The application itself is a single family home that has a septic tank that is getting to the end of its life. The county has a policy that they do not wish to have new septic tanks installed when you are within 400 feet of a sewer line. This parcel happens to be within 400 feet of a sewer line. It is in the unincorporated area of Indian Valley in the Nevado area, outside of the outside the Nevado urban growth boundary, so cannot be annexed into the city at this time. We have asked, and the applicant has agreed to have the dual annexation policy work, where he will agree not to object in the future should we ever wish to annex that area into Nevada. Reality is that area is extremely opposed to annexation, so we probably will never see this, at least in my lifetime, ever occur. But we do have that agreement in place if the commission wishes to exercise that agreement, which I know it's been past policies to do so. The other thing I will add is, because of the urban growth boundary and that this parcel is outside of the urban growth boundary, the city of Nevado submitted a letter objecting to this application because they, right now, based on the septic tank not having failed yet, cannot issue a permit to dig up the street so they can have the lateral connected to the sewer line. Now this, which created a little bit of a, what do we do in this situation? They at this point cannot connect to it. What I am suggesting is that we approve this application, let them get into the sanitary district. There is no harm or foul to the applicant, no harm or foul to the sewer district to do this, because they only charge you if you're actually connected to the system. So they'll be in the district, but he's not gonna have to pay to be in the district anything more than he pays today when he's not in the district. And I'm doing this partly because his septic tank is getting old. These things, from what I understand, his type of septic tank tend to last about 40 years. The last thing, and it's 41 years old about now, the last thing I would want to see is have a failed septic system and them have to come to us and do a emergency out of service agreement, then come back to us and do an application to annex into the district. It's more cost involved in the process. It delays the process a little bit to allow him to connect when his system does fail. The city has the ability with the urban growth boundary to allow the permit to be issued to dig up the street when he gets to the point where either his septic system has failed or is in immediate danger of failing. He's not there yet, but all predictions are he's getting close to that spot. So instead of us slowing down the process later on, have to come back here, submit all of his materials again, submit a new application process again, my goal is let us get this off of our plate today. He's not going to be connected into the district until his septic tank gets to the point where the city is allowed to issue the permit under the urban growth boundary. So that is what I am suggesting occur. We do have one public comment when the time comes, a written email that I will read when we get to public comment time frame. That's all I have to present right now.
Any questions from the commission?
So, Jason, the way I read it is
Vice
the
Chairman.
letter from Nevado, City of Nevado Planning Director is a denial, but basically it in effect is an approval with condition. So when the septic tank fails and deemed by county health as failing, then it sounds like it'd be approved. Even though it's outside the urban growth boundary. So in effect, what we're doing tonight is teeing up that approval. LAFCO pre-approves it. When the system ultimately fails, county health agrees to it, then the cascade and approval would be with the city of Nevada. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes, that is what I'm trying to tee up today, is to allow it to occur, not have to have the applicant come back to us in the future. Just go through the process as he would, because he'll be in the district already.
Okay. Any further questions from the commission?
No questions.
Okay, I will now open the public hearing.
Okay, would you like to call on the applicant to speak first?
Yes.
Okay, let me unmute you. You should now be unmuted. You can now speak.
Yeah, so essentially, we're just here trying to do the right thing, trying to get in front of a problem. We purchased the home recently, and when we had the inspection, we were told that the system was over 40 years old and that we shouldn't be expected to rely on it being serviceable forever, and that we were near the end of its likely useful life. And we said, well, what does that mean? Went to the county. They told us that, well, what it really means for you is you're within 400 feet of a existing sewer system, and your first course of action would be to apply to them, which you could do now, or you could wait till it failed and applied, but you'd like to get in front of it. So we tried to get in front of it. We tried to do the right thing, and not realizing that the city of Nevado had an ordinance that would prevent us from connecting. We've spent this money, and now we're at this point where it's spent, and it seems appropriate for us to go ahead and proceed with the process so that if and when the time comes that it does fail, we can at least cut a month or two out of the process of getting connected.
Thank you very much. And then Jason, did you have something to read as part of the public hearing?
Yeah, hi. Hi, Jason. Thank you for notifying us regarding the application for 200 Protaco Avenue. Unfortunately, we have not been able to fully assess this, and we do not have a rep who is available to attend tonight's meeting. The IVA stands for Indian Valley Association, respectfully requests that the commission please consider taking alternate option 2, quote, continued consideration of the item to the next regular meeting and provide direction to staff, comma, as needed, end quote. Regards, R. Craig Newton, and then he gives his phone number, which I will not read into the record here. That is the only public comment that we have. I do not see any other hands raised at this time.
Okay. So then we will go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission for deliberation.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Arnold.
I would like if we could postpone this until our next meeting. I don't think that's going to be a problem with Mr. Murdoch, but the Indian Valley Association really wants to know more about this. My guess is when they look into it, they are probably going to say this seems like a fair thing to do. But I also want the opportunity to talk to the head of environmental health who approves all septic systems. So if you could, if the board would wait until our next meeting, that's what I would like to see happen.
And Sashi?
Yes, Commissioner Caius.
Yeah, I would completely agree with Judy. That's the same thought I had. It doesn't seem like it makes any impact on the applicant, other than possibly you have to zoom in again in a month or our next meeting. But it gives Indian Valley a chance to participate, which they've requested to do, and it seems like a reasonable thing to do.
Chair,
Any other?
Chair,
Yes.
McAtee, I've had my hand up. I guess nobody's looking at that.
Sorry about that, Commissioner
So
Kohler.
I'm not disagreeing with Supervisor Arnold or Commissioner Caius, but one of the questions I have is when a septic system fails, it's quite an environmental problem. And it seems to me that they've had an inspection done which says it is going to fail. It's quite old. And I understand the urban growth boundaries in Nevado, but to me it's pretty problematic that we have to wait. We have to get this all teed up. It fails. It will still take a month or more to get the system online, even with everything we potentially will do. It just seems to me that it would be a good idea if Supervisor Arnold is talking to environmental health and potentially even talking to the city of Nevado. Is really, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me to wait and make Mr. Murdoch wait for an environmental failure. And that's what it will be when it does happen. So I think it's great that staff are teeing this up, and I'm in agreement with continuing it as long as Mr. Murdoch has no objections. But I would like us to really think about, what are we doing here? wouldn't it be better for us to work with the city and work with environmental health and say, this thing is at the end of its life. I'm sure Mr. Murdoch does have assigned inspectors, you know, qualifications on this, and think about doing it now rather than having something fail, which can be a huge problem, not only for the homeowner, but for the environment. But for the homeowner, you can have subsidence. It's really a problem. So I would like to suggest that while we're waiting for the next meeting in 2 months, that staff try to work with the City of Nevado and Supervisor Arnold to talk to environmental health about, let's consider really trying to do this now. And I don't think Mr. Murdoch is building a new house or anything and really developing in the urban growth boundary. He's doing something that's already there, which in city language, we call that legal non-conforming, something to that effect.
Well,
So
and it wouldn't be, yeah, and it wouldn't be annexed into the city, it would only be annexed into the sanitary district anyway.
Okay, well, good.
Yeah.
Thanks for that clarification. But I would like to sort of propose, along with the continuance, that we make those attempts to see if we could work that through now rather than wait.
Jason?
Commissioner Kohler, I actually had a very good discussion with the City of Nevado, the person who wrote the letter about this. Unfortunately, the voter-approved urban growth boundary has some very specific language as to what the city can and can't do. It sets up a process, and the city feels like it has no ability to go against or outside of the process that it has put in place already. I'm more than happy to continue to have discussions with them on this and bring environmental health in to that discussion, but from the city's perspective, they can't issue it. There is no wiggle room within the voter-approved urban growth boundary, which is unfortunate. I agree with you. I think that I was trying to find a way around it, and we just couldn't come up with one. But I'm happy to bring in others, and hopefully one of them will have that ability.
Well, let me just say one thing. Mr. Murdoch has his hand up, so maybe he has some insight.
Well, hang on one second. I'm sorry. Commissioner Arnold, did you have something?
I did. I just wanted to say that even if everyone reaches an agreement, we still have to come back and get the approval of this board. I don't think 8 months is going to make that big a difference. I think we need to understand that in these days of COVID virus and all the things going on, things don't happen as fast as they used to, and Indian Valley really deserves the opportunity to look at this. Hopefully we'll come in and say, yeah, we understand it and it makes sense. But to not give them that opportunity, I think is wrong. And in the meantime, will talk to the county, get it straight with them. And I'm all for coming back in 2 months and having this approved.
So Supervisor Arnold, I just want to make it clear, I wasn't saying approve it tonight. I was saying continue it with work going on in those 2 months. So I wasn't disagreeing with your continuance. No,
I know, but work going on is just work going on. It's not coming back for, we have to come back for approval. I think Jason has done a huge amount of work in this and talked to everyone. I think Indian Valley deserves that opportunity. And so I agree with you. Let's just let's talk, let's look at it, and then let's come back in 2 months.
And alternate Commissioner Skelton has his hand up.
Yeah, hi, thank you. I have a couple of questions. Perhaps Jason might be the best, or maybe even Commissioner Arnold. So the urban growth boundary, I understand it as it relates to the city of Nevado. I wasn't quite as clear as it relates to the sanitation district. Jason, can you share any insight on that relationship between the urban growth boundary and the district as opposed to the city?
Yeah, it technically has no relation to the district. The problem is the urban growth boundary has a clause in it that says you cannot issue a permit for someone to do work if the parcel that's in question is outside of the district. So what they're saying is the current sanitary district sewer line that they would connect to is under a City of Nevado street. They cannot issue that permit to dig up the street to connect the lateral because the parcel who's getting the lateral connected is not in the City of Nevado. And so that's where the connection comes in. The city's like, I don't know if the city necessarily has an opinion about the thing itself, but they're saying we cannot physically issue that permit right now because it hasn't reached a spot where it has failed or is imminently in danger of failing because because it's not there yet. It's getting close, but it's not there yet.
And once it fails, they could approve it with the 4/5 vote of the council. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah,
But it would have to fail first.
Yeah, it has to be failed or immediate danger of failing.
So, okay, that was my follow-up question. So there is a carve-out provision that would allow the city to get around this, well, excuse me, that would allow the city to issue the encroachment permit to get over this initial hurdle.
Correct. It's just
Okay.
we're not there in the process yet of the septic tank itself.
Got it. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, because if there's effectively no chance for this applicant to connect to the sewer, and the city is going to withhold that permit because of the urban growth boundary and the legislative act, then I guess wouldn't it be prudent for the applicant to, I guess, know that now and frankly plan on a replacement septic tank instead of a sewer lateral connection?
Correct, except there is a way to get through the process. It's farther down the road, and we're not there yet, but he came to us early. And to be fair, I was not aware of this small clause in the urban growth boundary about the city permit for this digging up the street until this application came to us. So I will be aware of this in the future. And if I get another one like this, I'll be able to say, wait, before you submit an application to us, let's have a discussion about where exactly is your septic tank. I just did not know that this individual clause was in there until the city sent us the letter on April 3rd, or on August 3rd, excuse me.
Yeah, and some of the commissioners may remember we encountered this. I think it must have just been must have been just before you got here, Jason, because it wasn't that long ago. But I guess it was before your time that we had another Indian Valley septic failure. That was a similar situation, but I think that one actually did end up being able to be approved for some reason. But
I think the one you're talking about did not require the sewer line.
The city street, yeah.
Street. It was in an unincorporated street, so you could connect to it. The problem here is
so you could connect to the center district.
Yeah, it's where the line itself is.
Yeah. Alternate Commissioner Moody.
Should we give the applicant the option to go to put it in his own septic tank and refund his money? I mean, this is the kind of thing that drives me crazy about government. Gee, one government agency says this, the other one says that, and the applicant is stuck in the middle with unable to do anything. Mr. Murdoch, I don't know. I hate you being in this position. That's all.
I think it gives him, Jason, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it gives the applicant the most options if we approve the annexation, even knowing that he has to go through several other steps in order to complete the process.
And also, I'll add, the county has a general policy that they do not they do not do new septic tanks if you're within 400 feet of a sewer line, with some very rare exceptions. So the applicant's put in an impossible situation here, and I recognize that. That's one of the reasons why I'm trying to figure out what can we do to it so at least he doesn't have to see us again. But at the end of the day, if we have more discussions, and between now and the next meeting, I will have more discussions. If we talk to the county and the county says, you know what, given what's going on with the urban growth boundary, we're more willing to have a discussion about a new septic tank, we can bring that back in 2 months and say, he's willing to do it, so withdraw it, and we can then have the discussion about, refunding. I would yield to legal counsel on what our policies can be on that.
Well, it sounds like, unless there's further discussion, it sounds like there's consensus among the commission to continue this so that Indian Valley can participate, and that we're inclined to approve it. Alternate Commissioner Skelton.
Sorry, one last.
The applicant wanted to speak, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, the applicant had his hand up for a second. I have one comment. Just if this discussion continues with Jason and the various interested parties, city, whatnot, I think it's worth reiterating the obvious, which is a proactive, reasonable applicant is frankly being punished for being proactive instead of reactive. And I think that's what I took away from Jason's introductory comments. It pains me from a planning perspective to see this type of outcome. And so I hope that if it does end up getting continued, that Jason, you reiterate that and hopefully find a way to bridge that gap with the city or the district or whomever else has an interest in this, so that we can encourage applicants like Mr. Murdoch in the future to step up and not wait until the 11th hour. And yeah, Mr. Murdoch had a question or a hand raised.
I'm sorry, let me first go to Vice Chair Murray has his hand up. Did you still want to speak, Craig?
Right, yeah, thank you, Sashi. So Director Kohler kind of touched on it. And I think we need to kind of look at what kind of the priority item is here. So if the septic tank fails and there's a health emergency, that should take precedence over a process, particularly if we approve it as LAFCO. So we are in sync with the county health in terms of providing better health service in this area, despite the city creating this kind of process that's seeming to bind the applicant, as well as some consideration by our board. We hope, I'm not sure if maybe when Mr. Murdoch speaks, he can speak to it. I'm not sure how he interacts with the neighborhood association, but it's always good to start there first. And I certainly what Judy brought up, Director Arnold, is seems responsible to go back to the county health and maybe they could determine, hey, this has 10% of life in it. It could fail at any moment, or this thing may fail, 3 months out. That could help, and those type of consideration probably should be brought forward. But again, back to Director Kohler, I think she's indicating, what if this thing failed and we were just waiting on it because of a letter from the city and wanting to get back to a neighborhood association for folks that aren't directly involved but have a concern, obviously, about their neighborhood, that they could have some review and comment on it. That's exactly why we're meeting tonight, is so folks could come here, speak on it, and we could move forward with our action. So I think just because someone's not prepared doesn't necessarily mean that we have to slow down our process. But again, I would really like to see the agencies involved really kind of focus on the health aspect of it. And I think right now that's kind of the county leading that charge. So again, thanks to Director Arnold. I'd like to hear from the applicant, but I do think it's reasonable to kind of line that up. And if we meet again in October, perhaps it's not that long a time to wait, but perhaps the next application like this, we get a little bit more input from the county health.
So why don't we go ahead and hear any final comment from the applicant before I call for a motion? Mr. Murdoch?
Are we ready for me?
Yes.
Thank you. Well, first, my first question is, when are these minutes published? How long have people had a chance to look at these?
If you're referring to the agenda and the packet, that would have been put out last Friday.
So we have a group that's essentially telling us that this is important, but it's not important enough to engage themselves in the call. And that because they don't see it as important enough to engage themselves in the call, I'm being put in a position where I'm now asked to wait another couple months. And frankly, that in and of itself, I find at least a bit objectionable. Second, I just made a decision to purchase the house for more than $1 million based upon the information I had at hand. I spoke to the county, I spoke to LAFCO, I spoke to the Sanitary district, and essentially I made the decision to purchase this house based upon an understanding that there was adequate availability on the sewer system, that I was within 400 feet of the sewer system, and that's what I would be expected to do. So I made a fairly substantial financial commitment based upon the best information that I had. And I've got to say that I agree with the one commissioner that suggested that, you know what, let's just give me my money back, because I'm only going through this process at this point because I've spent the money. And I've got to say that if it's important enough for my neighborhood council to inject themselves, then they should have injected themselves. It's just very frustrating to make a decision of over $1 million to engage everyone I can possibly engage, and then to find myself in this situation where somebody's objecting or at least wanting to postpone things, but doesn't bother to participate in the call. And then to have it sort of rubber stamped as sort of a reasonable thing doesn't feel reasonable to me.
Can I ask a question of the applicant?
Go ahead. Yeah, Commissioner Kohler, go ahead.
Mr. Murdoch, would you, if the commission were to vote to say refund your fees, would that make you feel comfortable? Or are you just very concerned at the waiting and what you've tried to do your due diligence?
Yeah, because I mean, as soon as I got this hurdle thrown at me from the city of Nevado, which I didn't expect, and perhaps if I'd have hired a really expensive consultant, I could have gotten to the bottom of this, but I thought I was talking to everyone. I had to go out and then reach out to a septic engineer and possibly incur a bunch more expense to understand where I am, because these are big financial considerations, and somebody that doesn't have the willingness to participate in a call is going to delay me for another couple months and put me in a situation where I have to sort of plan, because I reached out to the health department and says, okay, I would like to connect to the county, or to the sanitary district, but in order to do that, it either has to fail or you have to reject a variance. And I said, what's involved in getting a variance rejected? They said, well, we can't just arbitrarily reject the variance. So I have this, I'm in this bureaucratic limbo through no real responsibility of my own, other than I didn't realize that the city of Nevado was going to prevent me from, my boundary is an inch from the city of Nevado, but that they were going to prevent me from connecting to a system when I'd done everything to try and protect the public health. It's just a very frustrating process. And then to have someone that's not willing to participate in the process delay it, I find extremely objectionable.
Okay, well, thank you for that.
Mr. Murdoch, if you don't mind me asking, it sounds like it not just Indian Valley Association commenting, but there might be an opportunity to get some further options made available through county environmental health in this intervening couple of months. Is that something that's appealing to you?
It's really not. My experience has been the more people you involve in these processes, the more complex they become. This is a case in point, and I tried to do the right thing, and I don't think it's appropriate at this point for me to want to participate in this process further, and we'll all deal with it if it happens. I mean, I don't know what else to say. If I could get my money back right now, I'd take it.
I have my hand up, Chair.
Okay, all right, sorry, Commissioner Arnold.
That's okay.
You all at once.
Mr. Murdoch, this is not uncommon in trying to make your way through local county government, and getting things through the state is even worse. I would suggest that you agree to let us talk. I would think you want to talk to some city council members, and I could put you in touch with them. Or
I'm not a constituent of theirs.
Well, but
I have no sway. I have no influence on those people. I don't vote for them, and the voters already said they don't want people like me to join. I get it.
So then the next step is for you to meet with the members of the Indian Valley. These are your neighbors.
Right, they're my neighbors that decided to object, but didn't bother to call me in advance, and instead surprised me in this meeting.
I think
that's not right.
I think they were surprised. I think they were surprised. You know, they're working people. They get home, they see this.
Right, I get it.
Well, okay, Mr. Murdoch, here's the deal. You either accept it, and we work things out.
You can have my money. I don't want to participate any further. I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to put up with it.
That's fine. Okay.
What about if I make a motion? I think Jason had his hand up, but what about if we consider just refunding Mr. Murdoch's fees? And I know we spent staff time, but it seems like kind of the right thing to do. And I think Commissioner Skelton brought this up. Jason, did you have something to add?
Yeah, my only concern I would just for Mr. Murdoch in the future, if you withdraw your application and we refund you, you come back and it's at a failed system. At that point, you have a two-step process you have to go through with us, and it's a little bit more expensive than the current process. So if you want to withdraw, that is completely your right and within your custom to do. I just want you to be aware when you come back, your fees are going to be a little bit higher than they are today. So I don't want you to withdraw now thinking that, because we can get you into the system and then you don't have to worry about us in the future. So I just want to make sure that you're thinking about that. I understand your frustration. I really do. I just don't want you to make a rash decision right now and it costs you more later and make you more frustrated at the end.
Right. I just would like my money back.
Tashi?
Yeah, Commissioner Caius.
Procedurally, since a refund of any monies is a separate issue than this filing, is that something that is acceptable and allowable to even consider or do in this meeting, or does that need to go through Jason for the administrative aspect of that?
Mala, do you want to comment on that?
I do. There is separately two prongs. One is I was looking at the requirements. The commission can reduce or waive a fee. It just has to find that the payment would be detrimental to the public interest, and that's under Government Code 56383D. I do think we could move forward tonight, and instead of taking action, you could accept the withdrawal of the application as the applicant has just indicated. And if you wanted to make that finding, you could waive or reduce the fee.
Okay. So it sounds like an additional option before us is if the applicant wants to withdraw his application, then we could refund the fee and then just move on from there. Is there any appetite among the commission to just accept the initial suggestion to just approve it? Okay, sorry, there were a couple hands that popped up. Vice Chair Murray, did you have something to say?
Yeah, just really for the applicant, and I agree with Director Arnold. So the septic system will fail in the future. When that happens, and maybe you're rolling the dice, you'll go through the same process again. So the work has been done. You in effect have it kind of teed up at this point. So consideration is, do you want to wait till October to complete this, or just pull back and I guess try to make sure your septic system doesn't fail in the future? Perhaps you're planning on transferring the property soon, but either way, you know, it's a threat to the public health. So and now it's kind of teed up. Folks are aware of the issue as something for you to consider.
Okay, so I guess the question is to the applicant: Are you requesting to withdraw your application, or do you want us to continue discussing it?
At this point, I wish to withdraw my application with the caveat that I be refunded.
Okay. Okay.
I'll move that.
Skelton.
Yeah, sorry, I want to chime in really quickly. I have a little bit of a tough time making the finding of that Mala outlined in the government code about refunding right now, especially because staff, it sounds like, has invested substantial time and resources. Secondarily, at least what I've heard and my understanding is that he can't get a replacement septic system because the county's going to require him to tie into the sewer lateral because there's a county policy that's going to prevent him from getting the permit from the county. So I guess I would like to perhaps amend, well, I don't think there's a motion out there. There's a request from the applicant to withdraw the application. I don't think that's one of the things that's been outlined by staff, but I would make a motion to continue the application to the next hearing, consistent with what Judy Arnold said. And then if the applicant tomorrow or on Monday or Tuesday wants to contact Jason and withdraw it and go through a discussion about fees and stuff like that, I'd say that's an administrative thing that they can discuss. But as Jason said, I hate for him to make a decision right now when he's rightfully so frustrated. And that it feels like he's going to come back here eventually anyways, because the county's not going to issue him a septic permit.
Yeah, I think,
Mhm.
I definitely want to echo what everybody has said about just the situation that the applicant is in is really, it's between a rock and a hard place. And we as a body are not necessarily we're actually probably the easiest part of this. I'm sorry, Commissioner Arnold, you wanted to speak before I say anything further?
No, I didn't. I'm fine. Thank you.
Process-wise, I think that alternate Commissioner Skelton is correct in that, if you withdraw your application, which is, you're within your right to do, you're sort of in the same place. You'll still not be able to get the septic approved and not be able to get the sewer approved. So whether or not you pull out of the LAFCO part of the process, I think we're just that very beginning layer of this multi-layered bureaucratic process that unfortunately you're involved in and that we all have a great deal of sympathy for. But Jason, given that the applicant has indicated an interest in withdrawing, how, as executive officer, how would you like to proceed?
I would ask our legal
take his withdrawal at this moment, or yeah.
I have a question for legal counsel on that. I believe the applicant has the right to withdraw at any time. And I'm seeing a head shake yes to that. So I would say he has the right to withdraw. If he wants to withdraw, he can. It's then the commission's decision, not mine, but the commission's decision to determine if they want to refund his application fee or not. So the commission would need to decide that. It sounded like, based on all his comments earlier, you can make that decision tonight if you so desire.
Okay.
And if I could clarify, Chair, did the applicant it sounded like he wanted to condition his withdrawal on receiving the application fee back? I just wanted to clarify that.
May I? So I'm sorry, is it my turn?
Yes.
Okay, so 2 points. One is, it's based upon there's a whole host of issues that exist outside of my ability to influence them. The county basically tells me, look, if you cannot connect to the sewer system and you have a viable septic system, you will get approved for a septic system. The city saying, if your system fails, we'll approve you. Well, I don't know how much, just because I complete this process, there's still this caveat of a 4/5 vote of the city council, which is more than a quorum. So there's just a lot of unknowns. Even if I get this approved, there's a lot of unknowns at the point of failure as to exactly who's going to prevail in that argument. And so I understand the logic of proceeding. At the same time, by not proceeding, I understand that it has the potential to cost more, but I'm not 100% convinced, having sat through the process, that the city council of Nevado is obligated to approve it. They have the ability to approve it, but it's still a 4/5 vote. So I could spend this money and be annexed and still have them tell me no. And so at this point, I don't really want to try and spend the money to solve that future problem, when it could be that I spend the money and still don't have it solved. Additionally, the county has its own position on what they're going to do. And for someone that's tried to do the right thing, that's made a substantial financial commitment, and that could make another commitment of the $2,980 tonight and still find himself in a situation where a 4/5 vote is required by the city of Nevado, it doesn't feel right given the experience that I've had to this point.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'll reiterate that I think that everyone here has a great deal of sympathy for the position that you're in, and wish we could do something about it, but that's not within our power at this moment. Okay, so then given that the applicant has requested to withdraw his application, I would ask for would anyone like to make a motion regarding the fees?
I would like to make a motion I think I could make the finding to refund the fees or waive the fees. So I'll make that motion.
Mala, did you want to clarify the motion?
Oh, I was just clarifying the finding for Commissioner Kohler, and the finding is that it would be detrimental to the public interest, and that is why you would waive the fee or reduce the fee.
I will take that friendly amendment, if that's all right. Do it that way.
Is there a second or any further discussion?
Is anyone seconding?
Okay, it looks like there is not.
Can we
Okay,
see the motion again? Maybe Mala could read that to us, please.
Sure. It was my understanding that the motion was to make the finding to waive the fee because it would be detrimental to the public interest to charge the full fee, and to accept the withdrawal of the application.
Both things. Okay, I'll second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Arnold. Jason, will you call the roll for the vote, please?
Lashi McEntee,
Aye.
Craig Murray?
No.
No? Okay. Damon Conley?
Aye.
Judy Arnold?
Aye.
Barbara Kohler?
Aye.
Caius?
Aye.
Larry Loader?
No.
No. By a 5-2 vote, it passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Murdoch. We wish you the best of luck.
Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Yeah, Jason, I think it would still be great to continue the discussions on this, because this is at least in the last few years, this is the second time this has come up that I've seen, and this might be something that would be worth pursuing so that we don't have to get into this problem again.
Yeah, I will most definitely have discussions with the county, because I honestly don't see Nevado having the ability to do anything else. But I will have a discussion with county health about how this works.
Yep. Okay.
Talk to the city council members also in case they are involved. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
One suggestion, when you speak to the county, Jason, is if they can give you a range of what is considered imminent failure, so that when this does crop up again, or even for this case, if a septic inspector is able to show that something will fail within 6 months or something like that, if we have a better idea of if there's some sort of criteria there, that would be helpful.
I will ask, the imminent failure is actually the Nevado side, not the county side, but I will definitely ask that question. I asked them, the county staff or the city staff was like, we're really not sure, it's not defined, but I will try and see if I can't get them to give it, if we can't figure out how to get a definition out of this process, because one should be needed at some point.
Thank you for trying.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's one of those tricky ones.
Yes.
All right, so we'll move back up to public hearing item number 3, presentation of the Ross Valley Region Municipal Service Review public draft, information only. So this is just round 1 of this draft to receive comments.
Okay, Jaron, if you can try and do screen share so you can pull up your stuff, and I'll give opening comments while he's trying to set himself up there. You have in front of you today the public draft of the MSR for the Ross Valley area. Jaron will get into all the details of it. It took us a little bit longer to do this round of ones because COVID came in the middle of it, which slowed everything down. So we're a little bit behind where I would have initially liked to be, but completely understand why we are where we're at. But Jaron did a good job on this, and I will yield to him, assuming he's got his screen share working.
It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Yeah, I don't think I did that, but let me just see where the other part is. Why is it saying that because it doesn't give me that option. Oh, try now.
There we go.
All right.
Okay, thank you, Jason. So before the commission this evening is the public draft of the Ross Valley Municipal Service Review. Obviously, given the circumstances with COVID-19 throughout the duration of the study, staff members in every public agency have been asked to take on more and just roll with the punches. So I want to start off by just offering a huge thanks to each of the staff members that took time out of their days to help with documentation requests and general questions. It's a huge help when people get back to me with the things that I'm requesting, and I really appreciate, given all that is going on in the world right now, their help through all this. So I am going to go ahead and just jump right into this presentation. So to begin, just a quick overview of how this study is intended to be used. Guiding subsequent sphere of influence updates. While they aren't before the commission this evening, I don't believe there will be any sphere amendments coming out of this study. I want to pull up, you may or may not have noticed on this map of Ross, along this edge right here,
You have the wrong thing up, Jaron.
Pizza. The pizza. Oh, map. It's in there.
Whoever introduce yourselves, commissioners.
Do you see a map of Ross?
No, we still have your PowerPoint up.
Let's see.
Stop screen sharing and redo a screen share with the new item you wanted.
How about now?
There you go.
Okay, so here we have a map of the town of Ross. As you can see along this edge over here, it appears that the boundary is actually larger than the SOI. This is actually from the Upper Toyon boundary change. And while this SOI has been officially amended, the mapping shapefile just hasn't been updated yet. So I just want to make it clear to everybody that this is in fact all taken care of officially and is good to go through us. The shapefile just hasn't been set up yet. So back to this. Okay, so informing future boundary changes such as unincorporated island annexations as appropriate, and initiating government reorganizations as appropriate, such as consolidations or mergers. Here's the overview map of all the agencies involved in the study. And here is a list of all the agencies covered in this study and their services provided. There were 8 agencies encompassed in this study in total. The towns of San Anselmo, Fairfax, and Ross, the Ross Valley Fire Department, Kentfield Fire Protection District, Sleepy Hollow Fire Protection District, Flood Control Zone 9, and County Service Area 27. Here is an overview of the determinations that will require additional efforts from either LAFCO staff, agency staff, or both as we move forward. The first is a working group to explore the Ross Valley Fire Department creating a new fire district with the Kentfield Fire Protection District and the Central Marin Fire Authority. There are currently about 3 years remaining on the MOU between the Ross Valley Fire Department and the County of Marin for fire chief services, as well as a multitude of other administrative services. In that time, it is staff's recommendation that members of each involved agency, as well as LAFCO staff, create a working group to have some preliminary exploration on the high-level pros and cons of creating a new single fire district throughout the Ross Valley. If it is deemed to be worth pursuing by the working group, the timeline could also prove to be fairly advantageous to have a consultant perform a county-wide fire study to dive into more of the minutia and details involved. Next, we have an unincorporated island along the San Francisco Boulevard area in the eastern edge of San Anselmo's jurisdictional boundary. Staff recommends that town staff from San Anselmo perform some community outreach with residents within the island to discuss the possibility of annexation to the town and also to explore their ability to extend those services if they are not already. As you may have noticed in the original draft, there was also a mention of a unincorporated island outside of Fairfax known as Oak Manor. Staff had gone out and spoken with a couple of members of that community. However, upon seeing this, the president of the homeowners association there offered comment to staff that that community would vehemently oppose any type of annexation proposal. As such, that recommendation will be amended to remove them from that recommendation. The third determination surrounds some irregularities that I ran across when looking at the jurisdictional boundary between the towns of San Anselmo and Ross along the Crest Road area. So I'm going to pull up this map here. Okay, so this parcel here technically sits in San Anselmo and is taxed as such, but as you can see, has a building that is split by the jurisdictional boundary, with half of it sitting in Ross. The other half is in this parcel here, and this parcel's property tax goes to the town of Ross. This parcel also is split by the jurisdictional boundary, but is taxed as part of the town of Ross. And lastly, this large parcel is split by the jurisdictional boundary and appears to have a structure on both sides, one here and one here, but is also taxed as being part of the town of Ross. Staff has spoken with both of the town managers. Both are open to a boundary adjustment to correct these issues and clean this up. Come back to... Okay. The last two items are just a couple of minor documentation issues. First, the town of Fairfax staff has been informed that they need to address the format in which they post public documents on their website, as at this time, a majority of their documentation is simply a scanned image of a document, which is not recognizable by screen readers and isn't searchable, both of which are requirements by ADA. In speaking with town of Fairfax staff, they were set to make efforts on this when COVID-19 started, which obviously put their focus in another place. They have plans to address this moving forward. And lastly, while we aren't technically reviewing Ross Valley Paramedic Authority in this, we are reviewing CSA 27, which is a member of that agency. And in the course of this study, it came to light that RVPA's financial documentation is very outdated, with the most recent financial information available being from 2015. Staff from RVPA has been made aware and has intimated that they plan to try to correct this in the near future. Public comment is going to run through Monday, September 14th. As of today, we have just received comments from Oak Manor Homeowners Association President disagreeing with staff's determination on annexation discussions surrounding the Oak Manor area, and also received comments from one commissioner. Comments and responses edits are being tracked and will be included at the final draft approval. Any questions?
Oh, one small correction for you, Jaren, and I apologize. I don't know if I sent it to you. We did get a second commissioner sending us comments on your thing. It was a small edit issue that needed to be done, and I'll make sure I get that comment to you.
Okay.
Any questions for staff from the commission? Commissioner Kohler.
So as you know, I sent a lot of comments, and I can talk to staff offline about several of those, but there's a few I think I want to highlight that, first of all, I want to thank staff. I know this was a big one, and it's a lot of work, and dealing with small staffs in all of those cities who are working at home and all kinds of stuff. I'm sure it's been more than difficult. So one of the first things that I raised and worried me is that this is called the Ross Valley MSR. Ross Valley, typically when it's defined, also includes Corte Madera and Larkspur. And I know Jason got back to me that the plan for this was started before he came on board, but if we're going to be calling this the Ross Valley MSR, we have different options. And one is to potentially call it the Upper Ross Valley MSR, because I'm not sure if Kentfield is included in that, but Ross Valley does include those other two cities. This would make it a much larger document and more work, but we ought to think about how we define this MSR, because if not including those two cities is not inclusive of Ross Valley. So it's potentially possible to call it Upper Ross Valley. And my question I'm not sure of is, I'm not sure if Kentfield is typically included in that. I think it's not. I think it's usually considered Lower Ross Valley. So that's it's kind of a biggie. A couple of things that I caught is some of the lingo that we talk about things. I think Sanitary District number 1 is actually the Ross Valley Sanitary District. And I know Jason explained that's the way they started working on this. Ross Valley Sanitary District has had that name for a number of years. And for people reading this document who are familiar with the area, Sanitary District 1 will not resonate. So I think I can spend more time talking with you, Jason and Jaron, when there's time, because I know there's still time to get comments. But I just wanted to highlight some of the items that I think are sort of big ticket items. And I also brought up the fact that the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority has been formed, and all of this portion of Ross Valley is included in it. And I understand it's a JPA. LAFCOs don't have jurisdiction over the JPA, but for a holistic view, not to go into a lot of analysis, but to have a brief summary of what the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority is about, I think would be helpful, because for people taking this off the shelf, you can say, well, you've got fire, but you also have this broader authority. And so all I'm suggesting is really some intro sort of language. When we talked about starting this MSR a few months ago, I had specifically asked that we look to the possibility of forming Ross Valley Fire into a district. Currently, the Ross Valley Fire has a district within it, which is Sleepy Hollow Fire District, but the rest of the member agencies are Ross, San Anselmo, and Fairfax. And what that does, it means there's very limited funds available. If it were to become a district, potentially it could capture some property tax. So the funding, so this isn't about consolidation. This is a very different thing than consolidation. And I know LAFCO will be looking at a very broad consolidation for fire. But what ended up happening in this document is there was a discussion, a short discussion, of consolidating Ross Valley Fire with Central Marin with Kentfield. Well, first of all, if we already said that Corte Madera and Larkspur is not part of this MSR, why would that doesn't sink to me. But my suggestion and what the commission approved was looking at the possibility of a district, and I envisioned, as was discussed at the time, that a work group could be formed to evaluate that. And to me, that's a first step. And to get into this consolidation with two other districts, which would have zero interest in doing that, I think is beyond the scope of this MSR. And so that's why I put that forward. I'm disappointed in the Oak Manor annexation because, as you know, Jason, our fire and police provide a lot of mutual aid to that area. And we're glad that they're kind of part of Fairfax, but it would be nice if we could enjoy some of the property taxes from that area. So I'm disappointed, but not surprised that they weren't interested, because our taxes are more than what you pay if you're in the county. So that's disappointing, because our police have had to respond because the sheriffs take too long to get out there. and all the time. So that's a problem, but we'll live with it. We've lived with it for years. Another piece that, and I realize staff started this a while ago, but because we're in the time of COVID and everybody's budgets have been hit so hard, and all of us have passed our budgets, Ross, San Anselmo, Fairfax, have all passed our budgets, and I'm sure all the districts within have as well. I think it would be a good time to really capture those budgets that are approved, because if we're looking at this MSR as really capturing in a really important time where so many of us are hit hard, it seems like it would be worthwhile to pick that up. And I know you guys have done a lot of analysis, but I'm kind of thinking that that might really make this document more valuable. The other piece that, so that's for everything where we're looking at 1920 budgets, because life changed. I have some detailed comments that I provided, and maybe we can set up a time to talk about those. But I also want to just bring up one point. I know that staff use the general plans to make decisions when they say things like Ross is built out, San Anselmo's built out, Fairfax is built out. And part of my problem with that is that we know that the state isn't accepting that. We all say we're all built out. We can do rezoning. And we've tried to do it in Fairfax and have had referendums against us. So at some point, I think we should define in the document, if we're going to use those statements, and I understand why we do, that this is based on the general plan, and it's not that LAFCO is independently making those kind of decisions. So those are kind of some of the big ticket items I had, and I apologize for taking so much time, but I'm hoping that at least we could talk about the idea of how broad we make this document. Should we include Corte Madera and Larkspur, or should we tighten it up to call it Upper Ross Valley, because I think it is a different place. And then if I can set up a time to talk to Jason and Jaren about more detailed comments in the future before this document goes final, I would be happy to do that if you all are open to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kohler. Jason, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I had a few comments there. First off, yeah, we will absolutely make time to sit down and talk with you. You had quite a few comments. I really do appreciate all the time you spend reading it. I know it's not just because it's your area. You do this with a lot of the documents. So I really do appreciate that. We'll work through that.
You can always count on Barbara to read every page.
Yeah. She does. You all have something to live up to for the rest of the commissioners. There were two main areas that I wanted to bring up that you mentioned, and the rest of them will work out on the side and bring it back in the final document. One was your comment about the Ross Valley fire district and trying to, or the JPA and turning it more into a fire district. The reason we added those other parts in there was Chief Weber, who's in charge, the countywide fire chief,
who's also Ross Valley Fire Chief.
Who's also the Ross Valley Fire Chief, had requested that we include that into the discussion. So that's the reason why we put that in there. Normally, you're right, we would not necessarily get into, like, we're doing one area, and the very next area we're doing that Jaren has actually already started researching on is Corte Madera and Larkspur. So while they're disconnected from each other, they are simultaneously going to be, like, the next one being done is Corte Madera or Larkspur. So we will cover that as well. So that's the reason why we put that comment in there, is because Chief Weber had made that comment to us.
Can I just respond to that very quickly? As much as I completely respect and love Jason Weber, he's not a commissioner. And this commission voted when I asked for that change, for that, to look at it as a fire district. I think there could have been something put in the document that the fire chief of Ross Valley, because it's really from Ross Valley he's coming from, on that, had asked for to look at something broader. But I guess I don't agree with making that kind of a change when I, as the commissioner, asked for it and the commission agreed to that change. So we can talk more about it offline.
Okay. The other one I wanted to bring up is bringing in Larkspur, Corte Madera. I have no issues with bringing them in the next time we do this, when we do the next 5-year plan, if you want to bring them together. The only concern I would have is that one becomes an extremely large MSR. What we would end up doing is two MSRs in 1 year. We would do one in that point in the cycle. So we can have that discussion next time around. If you want to have a discussion about renaming, we've done that in the past with
we did that with Tiburon. We did that with the Tiburon Peninsula one. Yeah, right.
So, name, I'm happy to choose whatever name you guys tell me to use. I don't take pride in naming of stuff. I'll take whatever name people want to use. So I'll yield to you to tell me what that correct name is to properly connect who's actually in this MSR.
Yeah, Jason, the larger issues that this brings up for me, just as things to consider, are, just in general, as you do MSRs, which I think you are doing already, is just as you're kind of ticking down the list, and you and Jaron notice that something is not logically delineated. You know what? It really should include this, the way that you did with the flood control zones. I think we would all want to see you do that as you make this first pass through. Try to make it as logical as you can, even if that's not the way that the study schedule is marked out. I think that's, if the commission agrees with that, I think we would want you to make it make sense.
Okay, happy to do that. And I do look at stuff and we'll bring it back when I see something. This one to me didn't seem like it was that big of a disconnect, because we have one group going and the very next group is kind of the rest of it. So
and it's Twin Cities, which is its own thing. Yeah, I have no problem with Upper Ross Valley, and I'm not sure where Kentfield falls in there. The other two things that came up for me from Commissioner Kohler's comments was that when we do our countywide fire services special study, we should make a note of the unincorporated islands and mutual aid that is done, and just make sure that that's all equitable. And then I think it would be interesting, and maybe this is a retreat item the next time we do that, is to think about how we handle JPAs in MSRs in terms of how we make the document holistically useful, as Commissioner Kohler noted. By law, we're not required to cover JPAs, and then there's some things we are prohibited from really touching as far as JPAs are concerned. I know that you include them as far as the landscape, but it could be an opportunity for discussion with our state legislators as well. And I made a note to them. I have a sort of a growing list of Senator McGuire items, and this could be one of them, to talk about making that all hang together. So that was what I saw kind of from Commissioner Kohler's comments and from the things that are coming up in a global sense there. Are there any other questions or comments?
I had one more comment off of the issue of the timing and the budget issue.
Okay, and then we have Craig and then Todd.
Okay, just real quickly. On the timing issue, I get that things change over time. What these MSRs do, and what every other LAFCO I'm aware of does, is it's a snapshot. I get things change, and yes, COVID-19 changed a lot. In order to incorporate the new budgets in, would mean we delay this MSR by probably at least 3 months. And it means that all the rest of the MSRs in the process get delayed. And if it's just a COVID issue budget thing, that's not a big impact on the long term. But if we're going to be looking at, well, every time a new budget comes in, every time we do the second half of we always have 2 groups within any MSR site within any fiscal year. The second group is always going to have this issue. And we're going to have a very serious discussion then of how we rework an MSR schedule if we're going to be reworking in new budget systems. I get it's not like we would love to do something. Let me get one more thing. The state tends to use budgets that are 3 or 4 years old when they do a lot of their documents. I mean, so we're much farther ahead of the game than the state commissions and the statewide stuff that occurs. So I get the issue of wanting to include the current budgets, but using a static period in time helps us make sure we're comparing apples to apples across the board.
Can't you just in the document, if there's updated information, can't you include a supplemental link at the end of the document or something like that? I know you've been doing that as you've been doing these MSRs. You tend to have links to where those things can be found. You could always just add that, even if the analysis is based on the apples to apples analysis is based on previous information.
I mean, to the degree that we want to, we could potentially put in there and say, since this report has been drafted, that there is a new budget, and here's a link to that new budget. I don't want to confuse people in the process that what we're basing all of our conclusions on is based on the budget that's like the physical budget that's in the document. But yes, they've passed a new budget and you can go look at that new budget. I think that's a useful thing to add in there.
Yeah, it could be at the, in the resources at the end, or, the footnotes or something.
Okay.
Okay, we have Vice Chair Murray and alternate Commissioner Moody.
Thanks, Chair. So again, Jaren, I always appreciate your reports, very organized, presented well. I have about 5 or 6 comments here. One on islands. Part of our task here in Marin County, we're one of 2 watchdog groups. So really island annexations is something we should look at. And I'd like to see a little bit more definition, maybe with maps, our LAFCO responsibility, and then the number of property owners. So are we talking 5 property owners, 10 property owners? Is it kind of the tail wagging the dog in terms of all this undue service levels and costs that flow back to others that have to pay these rates rather than kind of a real rate that these unincorporated areas are absorbing? So I'd like to see a little bit more effort on that, perhaps with some maps and some detail. It could be like tabular data from your GIS research. Page 80 has a map of Ross Valley Fire Department with the island. And you mentioned San Anselmo has San Francisco Boulevard, and Fairfax has Oak Manor. So might want to just define that island there. Page 90 talks about the Campfire Fire Protection District and the Central Marin Fire Authority. And if you look at that map, they split College of Marin. One of the things I keep continually hear when we're looking at state budgets and how to make things a little more efficient is college, particularly junior college, have their own police authority. And the concern is that could be considered wasteful, and that those police authorities might be better served by the local jurisdiction. So I was wondering if we could touch on that. Maybe it could be just something to look at in the future, or something that could be beneficial. If you'd looking at for the local jurisdiction. Page 98, Sleepy Hollow Fire Protection District. It looks like it incorporates all of the Terra Linda open space boundary. And of course, City of Santa Fe's Fire Station by Scotty's is very close. So I'm not sure of that. That might be a consideration too. Is it better served or maybe jointly with Santa Fe? Perhaps they do it already. I'm not aware of that, but just want to bring that up. And then also with Sleepy Hollow Fire Protection District, there's been some press, probably within the last 2 or 3 years, on them collecting fees and collecting it to such a point that they were used for community center and pool rehabilitation. So I'm not sure if we need to look at their latent powers. Can they perform recreational type of responsibilities, or is this something kind of outside their jurisdiction that maybe they look at changing their powers? But the audit shows it's clean. There's no reference to it. I think just to be fair, limiting taxpayers and things, that's brought up and addressed in a certain way. And then lastly, in the document, I'd like to see a list of recommendations, comments that have been collected, and of course, any 5-year action plans or follow-ups. So when we get back to this in 5 years, what we'd like to see as a commission and how they've made efforts, these local jurisdictions, try to meet those goals. That's it. Thanks.
Commissioner McAfee, if I could really quickly just address the last part of Commissioner Murray's comments. As part of the final draft, we do give you a complete table of all the comments that we get, and we have the action item stuff. That we don't do that in the draft copy. We just do that in the final version that we present at the end of the process.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jason.
Can I just clarify something on the question on the Sleepy Hollow issue with the pool and the community center? That was very controversial a few years ago, and the way they were able to couch it is to say they were going to use it as an evacuation center. So it's probably worth pointing out, it was very controversial. They did go ahead with it, but it was refurbishing a community center with a pool for about $1 million.
Thank you, Commissioner Kohler, and alternate Commissioner Moody.
Hi there. I know a number of you sit on the flood control board, but it seems to be having a lot of trouble delivering flood control services. I don't know if any of you, and I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but is there any comments that LAFCO could make to somehow find a way to streamline the process? I know there's so many different entities that it's politically almost impossible to function, but any ideas there? And it may be something that's just out of LAFCO's jurisdiction. We can drop it, but I just had to comment as an outsider. The flood control district hasn't stopped any floods lately.
Well, Flood Zone 9 had one voter initiative that stopped one big piece. And in Fairfax, where there was going to be a voter initiative to stop another huge piece, and we had to withdraw our proposal to move forward because of that. So I don't know that LAFCO needs to put that in there, but that's, it was really, there were referendums.
Jason, and then you also changed how you're doing the flood control zones in terms of MSRs.
Well, the flood control zones are now being incorporated into the region which they're at. You will see our next item is a supplemental to San Rafael, because we had started that process with the consultants prior to us actually having made the determination that we're going to take the flood. We originally, the schedule was the flood controls district as a whole would be reviewed with all of its zone reviewed as part of the district. But then the district, or the flood control district requested we break it up into the individual regions because it made more sense to what we were doing. The commission agreed with that. So we have a couple of supplemental MSRs that are going to be coming through. One is the San Rafael one you see today. Another one is the Nevado area for zone 1. But after that, outside of those two, all the other flood control zones are being done with the region in which they incorporated in. And luckily for us, for the most part, all of the zones fall within just one region that we already had set up.
Okay. Any further questions or comments from the commission before we go to public comment? Is there any public comment on this item, Jason?
There are no hands raised and we received no emails.
Okay, seeing that, we'll close public comment. Any further direction from the commission before we move on to the next public hearing? Okay, thank you. Jason, actually, before we move on, do you typically go to the city council meetings or otherwise try to solicit comments from the cities and towns or the districts when you do an MSR?
When we put out the draft, we do offer our services to show up at any district meeting or any advisory board meeting or anything like that that they want us to attend. So far at this point for the Ross Valley area, we have not received any requests to actually attend those meetings.
Okay.
I have done that.
I'm glad you put it out there though. Okay, that's good to know.
It's an offer that we always give.
Okay, great. Okay, moving on to public hearing item number 4, presentation of the San Rafael Region Supplemental Municipal Service Review for Marin County Flood Control and Water Conservation District Zones 6 and 7.
All right, so that's going to be me. Let me get to our right spot here. Share. Okay, there we go. So everyone should have on their screen. I'm not as good as this as Jaren is to be able to make it the full screen. We'll just leave it like that. Hopefully it's big enough for you to see. So as I mentioned at the end of the last meeting, we did the San Rafael area already, had started that when we decided to divide up the flood control district into its individual zones. The decision was made we would follow up with eventually a supplemental. Because I didn't want to delay any of our regular MSRs, I took this one on myself and got delayed with a lot of other stuff. And so it's been a little bit longer than I originally anticipated doing. But I do want to, as Jaren thanked all their staff, I want to thank the flood control staff. They did a lot of work to help us get the information we need. Because the zones are done differently and each zone is kind of its own little universe, it's not quite the same as the cities and towns, but they have their own unique ways of looking at things. So in this, then the outcome that you're gonna get here is it's not gonna be the same level of outcome as Jaron gave, because we're just dealing with flood control zones. And interestingly enough, LAFCO has the ability to look at the overall district, but like we don't have any jurisdiction over the boundaries of an individual zone. One of those little interesting things that comes out of the CKH rules is we look at the big picture district, but not, and we can look at the individual zones, but we don't have jurisdiction over boundary changes, whether new ones are formed, old ones are gotten rid of. We actually really don't play that role. So we look at mainly, are they working appropriately and are they financially stable? Those were the two big things that we're going to come out of today's discussion. So the two zones that we have in the San Rafael area kind of sandwich the Civic Center area. One of them is the San Rafael Meadows, which is zone 6, and that's inside of the city of San Rafael. And then you have Santa Venetia, which is unincorporated Marin County, and is represented on this map. The flood control zone's main job is to reduce flooding. I would honestly argue in this case, flood zone 7 does reduce flooding because zone 7 at the very least is below sea level. So the fact that you don't have those people underwater right now shows that they are actually reducing flooding. Zone 6 has historically had very difficult flood issues, and because of mitigations that the zone has taken, those issues aren't as bad as they used to be. I'm not going to say they're perfect or they're always work, because that area can get extremely heavy rains and extremely heavy flooding can occur, but it has done a lot to reduce that for the residents of that zone. Oops, sorry, went a little too fast there. So let me break apart these two zones into two different issues. One is flood zone 6. It is a very unique and interesting issue that you have there. Originally, when the flood zone 6 was created, it was unincorporated Marin County. After the zone got created, the city of San Rafael at some point in time, and it's in the report, I forget the exact date, incorporated that area into the city limits. So you had a flood control zone that was controlled and operated by the county, but whose residents were incorporated into the city of San Rafael. Over the years, they've had a very good working relationship. Originally, they had MOUs that said the zone will be responsible for the big picture maintenance or the big picture building of projects to make sure that water is removed away, and that the city would take care of the street cleaning and the maintenance of that big system that the zone was building. Over the years, they've built up their system. There's not really much more they can really build into it. So most of the work is really done by San Rafael. So county staff during this discussion, when I say county staff, that's technically the district staff, the flood control zone staff, because it's really the county doing the work on behalf of the district. So the county or district staff said, they don't see a need for the flood control zone to exist in the way it does now. Right now, there's coordination that occurs between the two bodies, and the district actually pays to the city of San Rafael $8,000 a year now to help maintain the system. What we're suggesting is take the county out of the process. All the county really does right now is administrative support, permits that need to be done with the state or federal level for work that's done, and overseeing the advisory board. The city really does all the heavy lifting in the district, make sure that the system is actually, when repairs need to be done, they're the ones going out doing the repairs. When any work needs to be done, they're the ones sending out the crews to do the work. So while not necessarily a big cost savings to do this, it's more of an administrative savings to do this, where instead of having two different agencies having their staff talk to each other to coordinate things, why not just shift everything to the city of San Rafael? Well, oops, sorry, I have a speedster up my unit. Hold on one second. Unfortunately, I get some street racers out in front of my place from time to time once it starts to get dark. So what we're suggesting is that the flood control zone should basically, for lack of a better term, abandon the area and hand over all the responsibilities to the city of San Rafael. The city of San Rafael has staff on board that can run an advisory board. They already do administrative support stuff, so they can continue to do that. And they have people who know how to do the permitting process that the district does. This will save coordination. It doesn't save a lot of money other than the few hours that are spent between the two agencies talking to each other. It's just more putting everything into one body. The other thing that we're recommending be done is the advisory board be moved from the county, and the city basically take the current advisory board and basically copy it and put it into its system. And then finally, that all monies should be transferred and maintained and firewalled to be used for the flood, for the same purposes the flood control zone uses it now, that there is a fund set up, all the money that comes in, the property tax money that goes to the flood control zone, instead of it going to the county to operate the flood control zone, goes to the city to do the same exact thing. So there'd be firewalls in place. San Rafael has the ability to do it. They are, from what I understand, are having discussions internally, want to make sure it makes sense for themselves. And as I stated at the beginning, we really don't have a role to play in this actual physical merger from a legal perspective, but to the degree that the city and the county want us to step in and help be the neutral negotiator between the two, I'm happy to do it, because I think it's a well worthwhile. It fits within the LAFCO logic of consolidating services and making it more efficient, and I think that will definitely make things more efficient. The other flood control zone is completely unincorporated in Marin County, so it doesn't really have the city-county issues that the Flood Zone 6 has. Its biggest issue has been funding. They have funding to do the basic stuff they need to do. The problem is with sea level rise and more work needing to be done, they need to figure out how to create a more permanent funding source, because their funding is not increasing at the same level of cost of services are being increased. Specifically, when you start increasing sea level rise, that puts more pressure on the levee, for example, that they currently have that protects the area from water rushing in. As more pressure gets put on that, you need to build bigger and better levees, and that's going to get more and more expensive over time. So they need to come up with a solution to that. They have been having a very long and thorough discussion about what to do. Part of the problem is you have some people who are in the zone that need more services than other people in the zone. And so there's concern that if they put one thing out that says everyone pays exactly the same amount, you're not going to get the people who paying that amount who are in the areas that don't really get the same level of service. So they've been having a very long discussion about what is a fair and equitable way that services are provided, funds are raised, and they can do everything that needs to be done in the system. They met last Thursday night, their advisory board met to have that discussion. Staff and advisory board members, the county, have all been trying to figure out what is the right solution to use. And so that was part of their discussion. I was presenting the MSR to them, but the other part of the discussion that they were having that night after I left the meeting was what exactly needs to be put on the ballot. And so they're getting very close to doing that, which is very good to see that they're in the process of figuring it out and just making sure that whatever they put on the ballot can actually pass, because the last thing they want to do is put something on the ballot and have it fail. So they've been having some very long discussions over the past year, or even 2 years in some ways, around that, and are very close to getting a ballot measure that will be put on the ballot. I don't know if it'll necessarily make the November ballot this year, but it will definitely be on a future ballot to do, which is a good thing to see. So just as with the other one, comments need to be put in by September 14th. So far, we received one comment from flood control staff, which was really just a phone number issue. The county, because of COVID, has actually changed around how people should call into stuff. So they wanted to change the phone number of people who wanted to contact the district, which was fine. It made sense. The other one was unfortunately, when I was writing this up, I lost the version. It got lost out of the system, and we had to go back and pull an old version out of the archives. And I thought the version I had pulled had some changes in it that it turned out weren't there, and I missed them when I read through them again really quickly. So we have a couple of those changes that are in there. One of the commissioners made that comment. Commissioner Kohler, of course, gave me the most comments, and I think I've addressed a couple of those comments in my comments here today, because I appreciate the comments that she presented. So hopefully I addressed some of those, and we'll add them into the system as appropriate into the final draft, and we'll work with you to continue to get the document to the best place it possibly can be. As I mentioned, we attended the advisory board meeting. The only comment that they made to me was they wanted to make sure that there was a distinction in our document that said that the street and sewer maintenance system is not the flood control zone's responsibility, that is actually other people's responsibility, which made sense. I didn't realize that there's been quite a bit of controversy in that zone about people thinking that the flood control zone should be the ones maintaining the streets and dealing with the flooding issues that occur on the street, and that's not really the flood control's responsibility. So putting that in there, I thought was a very good comment. So we will add that into the final document that we present to you later. Comments and response edits are tracked and will be included in the final approval that we send to you, hopefully at the next meeting. I plan to bring this back to you, assuming we don't get too many more comments or have some major rewrites that need to occur because of those comments. We will bring this back to you at the October meeting for final approval with the edits. And as Commissioner Murray requested, we will of course bring in action items, which is very limited for this one, but also the comment table, so you have all that information in front of you. So on that, I will answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the commission? Oh, it looks like Vice Chair Murray has his hand raised.
Yep, thank you. So flood zone 7, just Jason, I think you probably want to reach out to the Santa Venetia Neighborhood Association, make sure they're connected. And I'm surprised you only had kind of one comment on it. That would be good. There's a lot of folks with long history there. There's a redwood berm that trying to get capital dollars to improve, and that they may really kind of supplement this report and make it more direct to concerns in that area. For flood zone 6, it's actually the area I live in. Kind of a comparable comment. I want to make sure that if this is getting switched or planned to get switched from county to city, that the board members who are involved, and one of them is the HOA president for the meadows there, that they're engaged, that they understand what's going on. And then I think the overall thing is this: what can we do to get this out of a flood zone? So in Southern California, I was living in the city of Loma Linda. They actually made capital improvements. So this flood zone actually happens to have quite a few dollars. And that might be one of the things, Jason, we put in this report, is recommend them to do a study with some of these dollars in terms of what it would take to get it designated out of a flood zone. So improvements that are happening, and your report also said there's no development in the area, and that's not correct. 350 Marydale, there's 45 townhomes. And the Oak,
Bluetooth mode.
Somebody needs to mute. And then also the Oakmont Senior Center is pretty intensive development that's going on in the area. And then lastly, on sea level rise, you mentioned this about sustainability. Since you're referencing documents outside of the county or this flood zone, you may want to have a reference link. I believe some are coming from the Sanitary District. So some sort of web link to those documents so folks could actually see them, read them directly themselves, make some determination. That's the end of my comments. Thanks.
Thank you, Vice Chair Murray. Any other, okay, Commissioner Connolly.
Thank you. Just had a few comments on the flood zone 7 component, and thanks for the work that went into the report. So looking at page 143 of the packet, I think it's like page 8 of the report under written determinations. This is just more of an editorial comment, but under growth and population, it's talking about the city of Belvedere and city of Tiburon as the study area.
Yes, that was the editing comment that I made earlier that I missed.
I figured as much. Yeah. No problem. Flipping down to page 10, just more question. I mean, this represents it in the 2019 San Rafael area MSR. Population growth for the overall San Rafael area is expected to be approximately 19% by 2040. That seems high, but I mean, if that's what they gave you.
That's what I pulled out of the San Rafael MSR that Plan West did for us and we approved. So I think the city saw that, didn't object to it.
Seems quite high. Flipping down to 24, and Jason, this goes to the issue you correctly mentioned about kind of a financing mechanism that the zone is potentially going to be pursuing. But I think we need to be careful about the language. The proposal now, I think as you alluded to, is establishing some sort of benefit assessment for parcels in the affected area. But on page 24, the report okay, so I'm looking under 6.7. Last sentence, the special tax being considered would be for residents of the zone to fund the berm project. It's not a special tax. That's actually a legal term of art. It's like a completely different thing. So I would just really be consistent, you know, kind of a possible or proposed benefit assessment, or the special tax requires a whole different voter threshold, completely different process, etc. Similarly, at the bottom of that page, again, just maybe double check on the language, maybe even with Mala, but it says a possible voter approved parcel assessment that might be based on the elevation of the parcel and needs of each parcel. Again, it's not really a parcel tax, parcel assessment. What do you mean? I would just say benefit assessment, or assessment that might be based on the elevation. You know what I mean? Just use the correct language.
Will do. I absolutely agree with you. The county staff has gone back and forth with me on what they wanted it to be called multiple times during the administrative draft. So I will reach out to them again and find out what the latest version is.
Get the latest and greatest, yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
No, I'll definitely make sure I get that, because it's gone back and forth since I started writing this.
That's true. Thanks.
Okay. It looks like Chair McAtee is back, so she can continue.
Yeah, sorry about that. I lost my connection. All right. Any other hands raised? Oh, Commissioner Kohler?
Yeah, I thought I had my hand raised, but I must have taken it down. Okay, so on flood zone 7, I just wanted to mention 2 things. One is that it's too late to put something on the ballot. It would have had to been August 7th. But if they're going to do something like a Melrose Bomb District, maybe that's what Damon is referring to, something like that.
Yeah, it's not going to be a ballot.
Yeah,
right?
so I don't think
it's a mail benefit. It's only mailed to those in the benefit district.
Something sort of like a Melrose Bomb District kind of idea, Damon?
No, well, it's like it's a Prop 218.
Okay.
Like the Ross Valley flood fee.
Yeah, okay. Well, anyway, so you're going to fix that anyway. But another thing I wanted to mention, on page 25, you talk about the pumps needing replacement, and I had raised this issue. So I sit on a countywide committee that Supervisor Arnold chairs, on which we allocate HUD monies for various things throughout the county. And San Rafael and Nevado are part of that, but San Rafael makes their own allocations, and then we bless it, and then it goes to the Board of Supervisors. My recollection is, I believe San Rafael had those pumps as getting HUD monies for replacement. It may not be all of them, and I think the supervisors have already approved that. So it may be worthwhile to check with San Rafael on that. Okay. Because it looked like they were getting towards the end of their life, and I can't remember, it was a few of them though. So that might be helpful. And then on going back to flood zone 6, you mentioned the financial savings of transferring things to San Rafael, and I'm wondering if we have an assessment of what that savings is. My guess was it's $45,000 because that's their budget, but that doesn't make sense. That seems way too cheap. So could you include some kind of financial analysis, or do you not know?
I saw that. The difficulty is, we know that there's some savings because you don't have staff talking to each other. So the question comes is, do we just we can try and figure this out if you want us to. The question comes is, do we just count what the savings are to the district, which means it's just the county staff time talking to the city staff, because the city staff don't get paid through the flood control zone necessarily, but they do get money from the flood control zone to do stuff. So it's kind of it's really hard to pin down exactly what number we would want to use, which is fine. I kind of left it a little vague, but we can definitely try and figure out a number and put it in there if you think it's important. But it's really not a large number. It's really just how much time do you save by having two staffs no longer have to talk to each other, because a lot of the work still gets done. It's just, instead of it being done by the county staff, it's being done by the city staff.
Okay, well, I think you can make the judgment call on that. My only view of it was I thought our role as LAFCO is to do things that make streamlined sense, as well as potentially sometimes saving money. So to the extent that we have some idea, but it sounds like it's probably fairly minimal.
It is fairly minimal in nature, and this was more of a streamlined reason to do this more than a financial, but there is a small financial benefit to do it.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate all the work.
Hey, Chair and Jason, just while you're on that topic, so some of the there's an unincorporated island adjacent to Meadows, right? That's basically in effect upstream, where a lot of water that's delivered flows in to this flood zone 6 area. I think that might be important, rather than looking just at the strict boundary. I know you mentioned you can't change boundaries at this sort of thing, but I do think that it's not kind of a standalone, that there's impacts from other areas that perhaps the county may be in a little better position in terms of reviewing, managing, and staff capability rather than the city. So that'd be one thing just to take a look at, and perhaps when there's some discussion with the flood zone board members, what their feelings on that as well.
Yeah, to kind of address that, I think you're partly correct there. I think there is that's the Los Ranchitos area, and part of that is unincorporated, but I think a lot of the water flow into the district, is actually diverted from a project that was done in San Rafael. A lot of the water physically, that the flow pattern actually comes from the San Rafael portion of its boundary more than the unincorporated part. But you are correct. It's actually borders in some ways, unincorporated and incorporated on the flooding side of where water comes from downhill. And there's also some flooding issues because of the SMART train that runs through there as well. It's a very complicated area for such a small little piece of land.
Okay, any further comments from the commission? Is there any public comment on this issue, on this item?
I am noticing that there is a person on the phone at a 415 number. I'm going to unmute you so you can tell us if you're here to make public comment or if you're just listening in for purposes of listening in. You should now be able to unmute yourself on your phone side.
Live. There you go.
Oh, there you go.
Hello there. Good evening.
Would you like to make comment on the flood control zone MSR?
No, but thank you.
Okay, we'll put you back on mute then. Are you here to comment on another item?
I'm not.
Okay, we'll just leave you on mute then. Thank you. With that then, we have no public comment and we have no emails received.
Thank you very much. Okay, we will then move on to business item number 6, approval of voting delegates to Cal LAFCO, nomination of Cal LAFCO board members, and update on other Cal LAFCO related matters. Jason.
All right, so to try and keep this short and sweet, the Cal LAFCO conference is getting canceled, excuse me, mainly due to large events not being able to occur anywhere in the state, which is a smart thing for us to be canceling those events. But they still have a few official items that they need to do, and we still need to select our delegates of who is our voting delegate and who is the alternate. Marin LAFCO has traditionally picked based on commissioners that are going. If no commissioners are going, they pick staff to be the voting member. The voting for board of directors is going to be done by email ballot. So that'll just go to whoever the voting delegate, the main delegate is, and they will be able to vote and turn in the ballot for us. If for some reason they don't return the ballot, the alternate will get sent the ballot told you can now send it in. But I'm assuming whoever we pick as the voting member will get their emails in time. The one part that's still a small mystery is how and if they need to do their business meeting. Because Cal LAFCO is a nonprofit, they have to have an annual meeting, and we're trying to find out, or Cal LAFCO is trying to find out, are there any requirements that they have to hold an annual meeting? And if so, they're going to do so virtually and vote on whatever is required for them to vote on in that process. Excuse me. So we need to have a delegate for that. The problem with that is we think, although it has not been officially confirmed yet by Cal LAFCO, that they will likely hold that business meeting at the same time that they normally would have held it during the annual conference. So we kind of know the time frame of when it will occur, but not necessarily the exact time. So in talking with Pamela Miller with Cal LAFCO, I kind of asked her, well, what happens if we pick two commissioners and it turns out that they're both working and can't get out of their work assignments to be part of a meeting at like 10 or 10:30 in the afternoon, in the morning? Would you allow us to have an extra alternate be a staff person? And she seemed to be fine with us picking the regular alternate and the regular member and an alternate, but having a second alternate be whoever we wanted to be. And my recommendation might be pick a couple commissioners, however you want to decide. This is your decision to make, but perhaps give them a second alternate being me. So in case they can't attend, we still have someone who's able to show up and actually be part of the voting process representing Marin LAFCO.
Okay.
Okay. Last couple of years, we've had Vice Chair Murray and I have gone. In previous years, alternate Commissioner Skelton has gone. Is anybody else thinking about going that would be interested besides the chair and vice chair?
And remember, we're not going anywhere. We're just picking people to vote on things and potentially
To attend, when I say going, to attend the Zoom meeting. Okay. So do you need a motion to?
Yes, you would need to make a motion to select who the voting delegate is and the alternate. And if you wanted to do a second alternate, you would need to make a motion to do that.
I'll move for the chair and vice chair to take those roles.
I'll second that.
Are you making a second alternate option as well?
Did we need to make you the second alternate? Is that what you're?
If you want to, if you're going to do it, you have to do it as part of the motion. If you don't do it as part of the motion, then you will just have a regular voting member and an alternate, no second alternate.
I don't think we need a second alternate.
Okay. Okay, can you call the roll, please?
Sure. Oh, roll call got lost there. Sashi McEntee.
Aye.
Craig Murray.
Aye.
Damon Conley.
Aye.
Judy Arnold.
Aye.
Barbara Kohler.
Aye.
Lou Caius.
Aye.
Larry Loader.
Aye.
All right, that motion is approved. One other final thing, just in case there's anyone interested, we have to nominate someone at this meeting because the nomination period ends. If anyone wants to run for the Cal LAFCO Board of Directors, every cycle they rotate between their special district and county members, which is this cycle. Next cycle will be the cities and public member. So if any of our special districts or county members wish to run, tonight is a night where the commission needs to nominate them. Otherwise, they will not be able to appear on the ballot.
Any of our special district or public members want to run for the state board? Vice Chair Murray?
So I'm interested, I've been a long time interested in getting on the Cal LAFCO board. And I think worked well with the staff, attended as many of the conferences and meetings that I can. However, the current president of Cal LAFCO is a special district member in our coastal region. So, I did speak to Jason. Jason spoke with that person as well. And it's highly unlikely that that person would be switched out. And I've pinged that person over the years too to see if they would step down or what their plans are. So I think it's just kind of a matter of timing, and perhaps the next go around I won't be here, but I think it is important for Marin to have representation. We've received some awards for best project of the year, and keeping an involvement at both the board level as well as staff. And I think we've had a great presence. So I encourage all others to consider it as well. But I just want to put that out there. Not that I'm not interested, but to defer to the current Cal LAFCO president. I'll stand down, and I believe he'll probably run unopposed.
Okay. Okay.
Call public comment, maybe?
Is there any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment, no hands raised, and no emails received.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and close public comment on this item and move to the executive officer report.
Sure. I got a few things. I'll try and run through them quickly because I'm seeing what time we're getting to, and I want to let people get on with the other things tonight. Budget update. This is always the fun budget update for us each cycle, our August meeting, because you get the end of the last fiscal year and we get the start of the new fiscal year. The budget that is in there for last fiscal year is not complete and finalized yet. That normally takes another month or so before our bookkeeper is able to put that one to rest. But it is a pretty close association to what our budget is. We came in under budget, which is good. We did not spend all of our money, which we kind of anticipated at the end of the day. So that's a good thing. You will see that our current budget, or our current year's budget has started. We are slightly above average, but that's mainly because a few large ticket items show up once a year, and they're like our membership dues, our insurance, and all those things get paid off in the first month of the fiscal year. So you see us being a little bit higher than where we technically should be, but those line items that are very high already are not, you won't see those go up really anymore. The one other thing that we kind of did was Jaren's computer. He had actually been using his personal computer because we needed a PC for the GIS stuff, and just he prefers to use a PC system. So he was using his own laptop. As he's gotten more acquainted with the GIS system, his computer really wasn't at the level that we wanted to see a type of computer using that system on. So we went ahead and purchased a new laptop for him so he can now have a better running, properly functioning GIS computer that he also uses for all of his other work as well. So you will see our office equipment line item a little bit higher than average for this time of year, but that's because of one particular item that we purchased to give him more tools to do his job better. The rest of them, I think I've explained, are pretty self-explanatory in there. I'm going to jump between these unless I see someone raise their hand. I'll keep going on. Current and pending proposals. Well, with the withdrawal of the application that we had in front of us, we don't have any current applications pending in front of us. We still have a couple of outstanding ones. You will notice that in the spreadsheet that you have in the packet, I took out all of the ones that we completed last year. Those no longer show up in our spreadsheet because they were last year's projects. As we get projects that get completed this year, they will stay on until we get to next August, and we take them off of our list again. I am anticipating seeing a few, we've been getting a lot of calls about septic, getting office septic into sewer systems. I think with everyone working at home, you're seeing septic systems maybe function not at the same level people would want. And so you're starting to see older systems perhaps failing or getting close to failing and people looking to replace them. So I would anticipate seeing more of those over the next few meetings, but we don't have them in front of us just yet.
Are they across the county or any particular concentration?
There's two of them that pop in my head. Another one's up in Nevado. It's in the city of Nevado itself. It's just one of the parcels that's remaining that has not gotten onto the septic or onto the sewer system. The other one was somewhere in central Marin. I don't remember the exact location of it though. Oh, actually, and then there's one down in Mill Valley. I take that back. There's a third one that's potentially going to come our way in the Mill Valley area, which I know Chair McEntee, you're aware of already. So yeah, they're kind of spread out. It's not like any one area's got it for us. So update on MSRs, we had 2 draft proposals in front of you. Jaren, as we like to do, has already, basically he took part of a day off to breathe from his last draft that he just released and has already started doing his research on the next one, which is the Twin Cities one. This is covering Larkspur, Corte Madero, some CSAs, and I'm drawing, there's like a fire district over in there too. So it's covering like what is the rest of Ross Valley gets covered in this MSR that he's working on. So we've already started that, already have met with, I think, all of the jurisdictions with like either the general manager or, fire chief or whoever's in charge from a staff level. I've sat down and talked with them. I'm going to start doing some community outreach shortly on that. So that's we'll start getting the public input side on that. There's some interesting items in that one that might pop itself up that we're just seeing in the initial review. Then the last item is special district elections of LAFCO members. As I believe Commissioner Murray mentioned at our last meeting, we now have a chapter of the California Special Districts Association affiliated in Marin County. Which is an amazing, great thing to have. So what we had been working on for a while and waiting for the chapter to officially in place was handing over the LAFCO elections to the Special District Selection Committee, which is the people who are supposed to do it when they can't meet and can't form, which has been the history here in with Marin County. They can never get quorum. We are going to use the chapter as a semi-substitute. The same thing occurs with the MCCMC. They kind of act as a substitute for the city selection committee. So we've kind of copied their process and formed an election process that will work well for them. They should be taking that out to their membership, I believe, soon. I've been working with not one of actually our commissioners, amazingly enough. It's one of the other bodies that is helping me work on that, and should be taking that through their process, getting enough districts to vote for it. And if enough districts vote for it, LAFCO will officially be out of the special district election process, and the chapter will take it over, which is, in my opinion, the more appropriate place for it to be housed and worked on. So I'm very excited to have that finally come along. We worked really hard. I do want to thank our 3 special districts commissioners, because they did review documents of how the election process would work while we were going through setting up how it works within the chapter. So want to thank them for that. And then 2 non-listed items. Earlier this week, I offered and the person accepted the new clerk junior analyst position. They will be starting on the 24th of August. So a couple of weeks out, they will be starting. I will send out, once they have officially started, I'll send out an email to all of you with their email so we can get all the introductions done at that point. But wanted to let you know I'm very excited. We found a very smart woman to take over that role. Really excited to have her come on board. I think it's going to be a great fit for us and for her as well. She's a recent college graduate, so she's looking to learn things, and we're a good place to learn a lot of things that she's doing. So,
excellent news.
Yeah.
Can you tell us her name or no?
Her name is Olivia Gingold.
Okay. Thank you.
So she will be starting, and like I said, I'll shoot around that stuff on the 24th to you. And one of the reasons why I'm sending it around on the 24th is because next week, starting on Saturday, I will be on vacation. I haven't yet taken a vacation this year and realized I need to take some time off or I'm going to burn out here. So I am taking next week off, and we'll be coming back just in time to welcome our new staff person in the office and get her trained. So I figured I'm probably not going to have enough time to really do vacations while I'm getting her trained. So I figured I would sneak one in just prior to her. So that is all I have for the executive officer's report. If anyone has any questions, happy to answer them.
No, but I just want to recognize the work of Vice Chair Murray in putting the Special District Association chapter together. I know he's been working on that for quite some time.
Thank you, Sachi. Also, Board Commissioner Kios has been involved in.
And Lou Kios as well, Commissioner Kios.
Yeah.
Yep. Thank you to our 2 special district members.
Just point of clarification with Jason. The MCSDA will host, but it'll actually be a separate function in terms of elections. So it's actually not part of the MCSDA, but in effect, there'll be a host body. So it needs to be clear that you don't have to be a member of
yeah, that is
Special
absolutely
District
correct.
Association.
It's the same thing that MCCMC does, where you hold a meeting, and 5 minutes after that meeting starts, you schedule the Special District Selection Committee to meet, and so they can meet at the same time, in the same location, and get their business done in a similar way.
Okay, so then it looks like we will move into closed session.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you all should have an email with a link to Cal LAFCO's Zoom account. Although I'm about to say, if we wanted to, I could stop recording this meeting. We kick Mala and Jaron out, and everyone can stay here because there's currently no member of the public in this group. And I can keep a very close eye to make sure no members join in or we can go to the other one and take a few minute break and, everyone gets closed out of this, move to the other one, and then we have to come back to this one when we're done with the closed session. So if people don't want to move around, we can just do a quick,
Yeah, I say we stay here unless anyone has any objection.
I was going to say, Jason, unless it's going to be a 30-minute closed session, I think we stay with it and just pull through it.
Yeah,
Yep.
me too. Yep.
All right, so we're going to kick Mala and Jaron. If you guys could leave, I'm stopping the recording now. All right, we are back to recording. We're back in open session.
Okay. All right, so we are back to open session and there is nothing to report. Any commissioner announcements or suggestions? Okay, seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
To adjourn at 9:19 p.m.
I'll second.
Oh, anybody?
I heard a motion in a second, so you can adjourn if you want to at this point.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone.
Take
All right,
care.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Talk to you later.